And now for the final work of the course and the final work of the modernist period. Well, not the final work of the modernist period, but the final work of the modernist period for this class. Recitatif by Toni Morrison. She is still alive and still writing. She's in her 80s. Born Chloe Wolford in 1931. Toni comes from her confirmation name, Anthony, after converting to Catholicism at age 12. And then Morrison, married name. She is considered one of the greatest living American authors, and has received the Nobel Prize for Literature as well as a Pulitzer for her novel Beloved. This, if you have heard of any Toni Morrison novels, Beloved and Song of Solomon are probably the two. She has a lot of novels, and she's one of my favorites. Her writing is great. Influences upon her work include African and African American oral and literary folk traditions, Latin American literary magical realism, early 20th century American modernist literature, especially Virginia Woolf and William Faulkner. So she really brings a lot of what we've seen from the modernist period already together. Now, her fiction, being modern, is experimental. There's her seamless blending of the above influences, as well as an overall narrative technique which calls into question the assumptions of fiction in readership, especially along the lines of gender and race. Toni Morrison is, of course, African American. Now, where does the title come from? Recitatif. Recitatif is her only published short story, and the title refers to a musical term. A passage of narrative or dialogue in an opera sung in the rhythm of ordinary speech, as opposed to the sustained pitch-modulated notes that are more typically associated with opera. Now, the story, just to get a sense of what's going on, on a more micro level than what I did with the Borges story. In Recitatif, Roberta and Twyla meet as 8-year-olds at St. Bonnie's Children's Shelter and Orphanage, and then again as young adults at Howard Johnson's Rest Stop Diner, and then 12 years later again, after they're both married, then during the fall's racial strife and picketing over school integration, busing, then later when Twyla's son Joseph is in college, outside of a hotel party. Now, the postmodern and post-colonial aspects of Morrison's fiction, they tend to go hand in hand. Most obvious awareness and conspicuousness during the 1950s and after, modernism with a sense of humor. That would be postmodernism. Self-aware, self-conscious, self-reflexive literature, highly metatextual and metafictional. Very deconstructive, stylistic playfulness, featuring the absurd and the outrageous. Imitative and ironic, lots of parody and pastiche, in other words, making fun of sort of humorously using the forms of other forms and genres of literature. And questioning and undermining and inverting Anglo, hetero, and phallonormative conventions, in other words, white, straight, male conventions, Moore's definitions and expectations from a non-Anglo, that is, non-dominant white culture, etc., viewpoint and experience. Now, considerations for reading Recitatif. One thing you'll notice immediately is that, Morrison is playing a game with you with Recitatif. It's a game of stereotypes and racial ambiguity. See if you pick up on that. And the problematic issue of the past, especially remembering it. This should be fun. I look forward to seeing these discussion responses.